Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie giving a shout out to
Something Else.
Something Else, Daddy.
This is Mantell, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to episode number 132 of Something Else. My name is Arya. Feast your hair holes on this week's episode as we take a look at Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from October 15th, 1983. As I said, my name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Wheeler Yuta to my John Moxley. It's Trae. Trae, I want you to go put a bag on someone's head right now.
I think that's a felony.
I've seen it now twice on wrestling in the last 4 weeks. If it's a felony, you can't do it on wrestling.
You're allowed to commit felonies in wrestling. That's the whole point.
Really? Huh.
Apparently.
All right. Excuse me. I gotta go take care of something. 5 minutes later.
Oh.
All right. Took care of something. All right. So we got some fun wrestling to talk about this week. Mid-South, I thought by and large was a really good show. I thought World Class. I mean, it had a main event we've seen 8 million times, but I thought it was interesting to say the least. This was definitely not a week where we had two shows where nothing happened.
No, it was not, and these weren't bad shows. In fact, a hell of a lot happened. Something happened that just put me in such a bad mood, it almost put me off of the whole thing, but we'll get to it.
Is it something that happened during the first show that we review?
Yes.
Should we flip the order just to save your ranting until then?
No.
All right. So then we are going to start with Mid-South Wrestling, October 15th, 1983, from the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. We have a really lengthy intro this week, but we've broken it up into parts. Let's go to the first part here. It's with Boyd Pierce and Bill Watts, and they're going to discuss what is going to happen today, and we're going to get an election of sorts here in October of 83. Let's go to Boyd and Bill now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and as usual, we have a lot of excitement coming up. You'll see the debut of Leaping Lanny Poffo, who will be here. Russian Nikolai Volkov is on the card. Battle of the Big Men, Crusher Darso, the outdoorsman from Minnesota, takes on King Kong Bundy. And the Mid-South Tag Team titles, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Magnum TA against Hacksaw Butch Reed and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. It's an unusual situation. The man to tell you about it, a man unsurpassed in television commentating, and I mean that. We've missed him the past few weeks. Cowboy Bill Watts. Bill.
Well, thank you, Boyd. It's very unusual tonight. I'm glad I'm here, but I think I'm a little confused, and you are too at this point. Last week, a challenge was issued. Hacksaw Butch Reed and Jim the Anvil Neidhart said they challenged Hacksaw Duggan and Magnum TA to defend their Mid-South tag titles here on TV. Naturally, Grizzly Smith immediately went to work to sign that bout for you fans that support the Mid-South TV network so well. He has that match signed. However, just before airtime today, Hacksaw Reed met with Grizzly Smith about the North American title. He said that he is the people's champion and would also defend the North American title here today on TV. To keep Mid-South or anyone else from ever again not giving him the respect he is due, or to be able to say he is ducking any certain opponent, he wants the audience to select his opponent from among 4 top contenders: Magnum TA, Crusher Darso, Hacksaw Duggan, and the Junkyard Dog. A pretty formidable crew. He did state that he would reserve his contractual rights of final acceptance. We reminded him that he was already signed as challenger for the Mid-South Tag title bout here today. He abruptly informed us that he was aware of his contractual commitments probably better than we were, as he had studied them very closely. Also, that since the North American title holds precedence over the Mid-South Tag title, he would defend the North American title first, then require 2 bouts in between for recuperation. Then he would do what no one had been able to do ever in the history of wrestling. He would wrestle for the Mid-South Tag title if television time were available. If not, the Mid-South Tag title would be next week. We had the opponent selection just prior to airtime. We'll go to Reeser Bowden in the ring as we let you see who the people right here at the Irish McNeil Boys Club selected to wrestle Hacksaw Butch Reed for the North American title.
We have a rather unusual situation on this program. Hacksaw Butch Reed will defend his North American heavyweight title, but he has demanded that the audience here today decide who his opponent will be for that contest. And the way we're going to do that is to let the audience pick the contestant by applause. We will bring these people out into the ring one at a time. The audience will register their approval or disapproval by the amount of applause. So let's have the first contestant come on to the ring.
All right. So we'll stop it there. We're not going to play each person coming out. And actually, I kind of assumed they were going to play Dog's music. So that's why I'm like, okay, I can't play this. But they actually don't. But either way, so we're having Taboo Tuesday this week. Butch Reed is going to defend the North American title, and he is leaving it up to the fans to pick a challenger. However, and this is important, he reserves the champion's right to final acceptance to decide his challenger. And he's going to defend the title, and then he requires 2 matches to happen in between. And if there's time, they're going to then have the tag team title match where him and Jim "The Anvil" Neidhart challenge Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Magnum TA for the tag team titles. And that's in addition to the debut of Lanny Poffo, along with Crusher Darsow versus King Kong Bundy. Now, I mean, this kind of tells you where we are with Mid-South, that these are your top 4 baby faces. But your top 4 baby faces are your 4 challengers that Reed has chosen, unless there's someone I'm forgetting. But it's Duggan, Dog, Crusher Darsow, and Magnum TA.
You notice who he didn't put in that field?
Who?
George Weingroff's penis.
Oh, well, I mean, you have to make things fair, because I mean, if Weingroff was involved, like, he obviously would have gotten more cheers than anybody, and it's not fair to just keep giving Weingroff all the title matches.
So I'm
Now,
making a joke out of this because that's what it deserves. I don't want to go into a whole dissertation about the quote unquote right kind of heat, but like, I don't know. I just get irritated when the heat is this was stupid and a waste of everybody's time. I don't know.
honestly, I thought that it was a nice callback to when Dog needed a tag team partner. And and they chose Duggan that time instead of Reed, and that was the start of Reed's heel turn. And I was thinking, well, maybe he's doing this to sow some seeds of dissension among the baby faces, and maybe lead to, you know, the baby faces turning on each other. But that doesn't seem to be what happened. Instead,
It's not at all what
uh,
happened.
no. Well, I mean, something could happen next week, for instance. But I mean, they bring everybody out. Crusher Darsow comes out. He gets a nice applause. Nothing to write home about, but he has nice applause. TA gets a lot less. Duggan comes out and gets quite a bit more, and Dog gets a similar amount, which led to a runoff where Dog wins. I did think it was interesting, and this is, what I've been bringing up about Dog not really being the people's champion as much as we've been thinking, that that he was not the blow away winner. Duggan got a lot of cheers on his own. to the point where you really did have
Yeah.
to do the second vote because I was like, that was close. But to be fair, when
Well,
they did
like
do the
it really
second,
was.
mhm.
It really was close the first time, and did necessitate the playoff, but the playoff was very clear.
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say that when they did it the second time, it was very clear that while Duggan was very popular, Dog did get more cheers in that situation. So to give you the final tally, Dog is first, Duggan is second, Darso is third, and Magnum TA is fourth. So let's now go to Bill Watts, who's interviewing Butch Reed. And Butch Reed is going to make his final decision over who he's going to defend the North American title against this week.
Here I'm standing with Hacksaw Butch Reed, the North American champion, who's going to try something that I don't think has ever been done in the history of wrestling. In one television event, he is going to defend the North American title, and then if there is time remaining, he's going to attempt with Jim the Anvil Neidhart to capture the Mid-South Tag Team title. And you've really set a chore for yourself because as you saw the people, it was a close vote between Hacksaw Duggan and the Junkyard Dog, but when Reeser Bowden had the tie run off, without a doubt, it was the Junkyard Dog that you're going to wrestle here tonight for the North American title. Your comment?
Well, let me tell you, I knew that these people were going to choose the Junkyard Dog, you understand? But I want to tell all you people, I want to tell you, Bill Watts, the Junkyard Dog does not deserve a title shot. I have beat the dog fair and square in the Superdome back in the summer. I have also beat the dog in them so-called stipulated matches that he made famous. I beat him at his own game. And furthermore, to drop down as low as he has done a couple of weeks back when he come out here and sucker punched me, he stole on me right here on national TV and caused me to lose a match with that old hairy hippie, Jim Duggan. Now, another thing. Let me tell you about Jim Duggan. Jim Duggan doesn't deserve a title match either. I beat him in every battle of the Hacksaw match across Louisiana, Mississippi, and the state of Texas. As far as Crusher Darso goes, he's too green to step in the ring with Butch Reed. He hasn't got enough hours in the gym or in the wrestling ring. So that excludes him. And another thing, Bill Watts, I told you before any contract or anything went down.
Wait just a minute. You mean you're eliminating these three people? You haven't said anything about Magnum TA. Are you going to eliminate him also?
No, I'm eliminating three. And that leaves, I just named the three that I have eliminated. And that leaves Magnum TA.
Now, wait a minute. Let me make sure I understand this. You came to Grizzly Smith. You said for the people to pick you an opponent. They have picked the Junkyard Dog. You're eliminating the Dog, Duggan, and Darso, and you're selecting Magnum TA. You just beat Magnum TA right here on TV a couple of weeks ago. That's not the agreement. The agreement was you'd wrestle who they picked.
He is the only formidable opponent that I have with any credentials in the wrestling ring to face me now.
What kind of contractual basis is that?
The contractual right is right here, Bill Watts, in black and white, that I get the last say-so in my match that I have. And I chose for myself Magnum TA. And Bill Watts, if you or Mid-South don't like it, then there will be no title match. So while I go back here and warm up and get ready for you and Mid-South to make a decision, come let me know or there won't be a match.
Well, I've got to apologize. Apparently this has been a platform for Hacksaw Butch Reed to show just exactly what kind of respect he demands as the champion. He's made it a forum to once again degrade the Junkyard Dog, Hacksaw Duggan, and now he's added Crusher Darso. And I guess it's right on Grizzly Smith as to whether or not we have a North American title match. It'll apparently be with Magnum TA. I'm sure during the commercial break, Grizzly Smith will be trying to sort it all out. We'll be back after these messages from Mid-South.
Right. So I will say that I liked the idea of this, but at the same time, it was a very, very long, drawn out way to screw over, you know, the fans, screw over Junkyard Dog. It just, I don't know. It was 10 minutes of a show that goes 42 minutes. 25% of this show is basically a waste of time because at the end of the day, Butch Reed can just pick his challenger. And if he could just pick his challenger, what the hell? Like, how can you ever force a guy to defend the title, which is an angle that happens on every promotion in the history of wrestling, when contractually we've just found out Butch Reed can decide who he wrestles. If he doesn't want to wrestle the dog, he doesn't have to wrestle the dog. If he doesn't want to wrestle George Weingroff's penis, he doesn't have to wrestle George Weingroff's penis. He can wrestle Magnum TA's penis if he wants to. So it's, like I said, I liked it, especially the way it plays out later, but it was a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't particularly enjoy this.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. You already covered it. I don't know what further analysis would improve upon things. I just thought it there could have been a much more time effective way of getting to this destination.
Yeah. I will say I do like the nickname, the Hairy Hippie for Jim Duggan. You know,
It suits
if
him.
if I could think of a nickname for Jim Duggan, that would definitely be the best one that I'd have heard anytime.
He does have long
Watts,
hair and a known fondness for marijuana.
yeah, Watts does bring up though that Reed has beaten Magnum TA in the past, and it seems like he was taking the easy way out. Especially since he's wrestled Dog, he's wrestled Duggan, knows how much tougher theoretically they are, and Darso is an unknown entity still. But I guess we're going to wait and see what happens here later on in the show. But for now, I guess the show is upside down here because we're starting with the expiration of time match. Tom Stanton and the king of this show, Art Cruz, versus George Weingroff's penis and King Cobra, who is neither a king nor a cobra.
Now,
Now,
see, when I saw that George Weingroff was teaming with King Cobra, I just assumed that was the name of his dick.
there might be something to why they're a team here.
Maybe.
Now, longtime listeners of this show, and we have millions of listeners all over the world. Longtime listeners will remember Cobra was here last year. He won one match against Tom Ernesto Jr. and then proceeded to lose to every single person on the roster. Part of why he was here is because he was African American and it was going on during the Stagger Lee angle, and he's the person who played the fake Stagger Lee anytime they'd need Junkyard Dog and Stagger Lee to be on camera together. So, in case you're
Wow.
curious, yeah, that's who that was.
Clever.
So we're informed that Grizzly Smith is on the phone with a member of the Louisiana State Athletic Commission to determine what would happen. How do you think the commission member reacted when Grizzly asked if he had any children, and then when Grizzly seemed to be more interested in his tween daughter than any of the others?
Jesus.
Weingroff then pins Stanton with a roll up in case you give a single fuck about this
So,
match.
the only note that I really have about this match was that at one point Watts was just rambling on and on about the Butch Reed angle, and he called it macabre, except he pronounced it macabre. I thought that was kind of funny. And then George Weingroff won with the ground cobra twist, and I thought it was funny that here, the day after WrestleDream, which pays homage to Antonio Inoki, George Weingroff also pays homage to Inoki with his fabled ground cobra twist.
And he did it without Inoki's grandchildren being in the building, to the best of our knowledge.
To the best of our knowledge.
So up next, now normally when we go to commercial, they'll do like, the 2-second replay of the finish of the match, and underneath it'll tell you what's coming up in the next segment. Well, up next was going to be Hacksaw Reed versus a blinking question mark. Somebody discovered that their editing machine can do a blinking effect.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, in fact, we do have Magnum TA challenging Butch Reed for the North American title. Shockingly, TA is not a coward and did come out to wrestle Reed for the championship. Now, as the match is getting going, the crowd is making far more noise than you would expect given a match between Butch Reed and Magnum TA. Let's play some audio here to let you know what is fucking happening here.
Referee, the challenger.
Oh, look at this. Look at this.
Well,
Grizzly Smith, and look at the junkyard dog dressed like a zebra. Oh, I knew Grizzly was in a deep conversation with Major Orville Richards, the Louisiana State Athletic Commission deputy here.
All right. So Major Orville Richards of the Louisiana State Athletic Commission as sanctioned Junkyard Dog as the referee for this match. Now, if we're getting the State Athletic Commission involved, I would assume that means Dog had to submit an application to the commission. There had to be a meeting that occurred where there was a vote to whether or not to approve Dog's license to be a referee. So if that's the case, I think we need to put in a Freedom of Information Act request to get a hold of Dog's application.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
Yes. Personally, I think there's, a controversy here. I think Major Richards acted on his own behalf, that there was no paperwork, at least done in advance. And I think Butch Reed is going to have a few things to argue about based on this match.
So
And
I originally wrote that installing such a blatantly biased official in a championship match was the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done. But I later had to recount that because A, Dog was a completely fair referee in this match, and two, something else happened later that was the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done this week.
yes, I did note that Watts laughed at the idea that Junkyard Dog was too fat to fit into his referee shirt. But other than that, Dog was an impartial referee. This was a perfectly fine match. It was not as good as that first Reed Magnum TA match from, I think, July that I just marked out over. And that you were like, that was okay. But they've wrestled multiple times. It's been, fine multiple times. TA is still green, but Butch Reed has solved the mystery of having a good match with Magnum TA, at least until he goes to Charlotte in a few years. I will say that Junkyard Dog did marginally count faster when TA was on top, but it was so slight that unless you're really, really looking for it, you didn't notice it. So I think it might have been coincidental more than anything else. So
yeah, it seemed
Mm-hmm.
consistent.
Yeah. The finish of the match sees Reed shove TA into Dog and go to the top rope. Now, it's important to note, coming off the top rope is an automatic disqualification in this territory.
Is it now?
So, yeah, it is. So Dog lays across TA and warns Reed not to come off, which is a step more than you'll ever see any referee do ever. And Reed comes off the top anyway with a knee drop on the Dog. Now, theoretically, both of these things should have led to an immediate disqualification, but instead Butch Reed goes back up top and comes off. But Dog, because it was just a knee, I mean, it's not a knockout blow because he's not a normal referee. He's a 300-pound, beast. Dog gets up and punches Reed in the face as he's coming off the top rope, which would have been the third disqualification. TA then hits the belly-to-belly suplex for the 3 count, and we have a new North American champion.
That punch did not land in the same zip code as Butch Reed's face, I don't think.
Well, he punched Butch Reed near his face.
Might have got sick off of the wind.
I mean, to be fair, this is 1983, and people, for the most part, did not lay it in to make it look good on TV. Most people were not watching this on 60-inch televisions, and if they were, those 60-inch TVs were definitely not high def, like the one I was watching it on. But, still,
I watched this on
I
an iPad.
well, I mean, they also weren't watching it on an iPad, probably. Probably.
It is high definition.
Yes. But yeah, for now anyway, Magnum TA is a double champion, the North American champion and one half of the tag team champions. And we'll see in a few minutes if that continues. But first, we have to go to Nikolai Volkov versus Mike Reed. And as I always need to point out, because I'm an idiot, Mike Reed is not the name of the father on the Brady Bunch. The actor's name was Robert Reed, and the character's name was Mike. And every time I see Mike Reed, I've somehow combined the two and be like, oh, that's the guy from the Brady Bunch. It's not.
That's funny.
Volkov, by the way, wins with a backbreaker.
Yeah, at least the backbreaker looked a little better this week. The real story of this match was that geopolitical Bill Watts was back, just bitching about Soviet atheists.
Leave it to Bill Watts. By the way, I should note, and this probably should have been something I'd looked up and not I'm just guessing right now. Either this TV taping that we're on now or the next TV taping is the one where Jerry Jarrett is there to give Bill Watts advice on what's wrong with his territory.
Huh.
Because, yes, we are just around the corner from this company picking up.
That's a relief, really.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I never bothered to ask you, did you have any thoughts about that match between Butch and Magnum other than Dog just being a perfectly fine referee?
It was fine.
You didn't make any jokes about pedophilia or anything?
No more than the usual.
All right. So I by the sounds of it, I may need to take a deep seat right now. Leaping Lanny Poffo versus Doug Vines. So before we get to the finish, let's talk about everything that happened before the finish. I note that Lanny is rocking his finest bathrobe and his tiny mustache. We find out that a channel in Port Arthur, Texas, is now the home of Mid-South Wrestling. And I was going to ask you, how close is Port Arthur, Texas to you?
About an hour and a half, maybe.
Okay. So who knows? Back in 83, you may have gotten that channel and could have been watching Mid-South Wrestling. Although you were in Houston, so
Houston.
Yeah,
pretty sure they were already getting it.
Yeah. That and motherfucking Paul Bosch, who fucked Gino Hernandez's mom.
Oh.
Watts reminds us that they moved the Thanksgiving Superdome show to the Saturday before Thanksgiving, so they could let LSU have a college football game broadcast on TBS that day. Now, I don't know this for a fact because Watts was a regular tenant of the Superdome, but if I was a betting person, it was not a negotiation, and the Superdome was just like, yeah, no, this game is more important than your wrestling match, and so you can move the date or just not run at our stadium.
But Watts was very gracious about it.
Yes. This was not a Katsoulis thing where he went on TV and ripped the management of the Superdome.
No.
All right. So if you've ever seen Lanny Poffo actually win a match, and if you're just a WWF lifer, you may not have seen too many of those. Lanny Poffo's finishing move is a moonsault. Now, we've mentioned on many occasions, including just 10 minutes ago, that a move off the top rope is illegal in Mid-South and is an automatic disqualification. So you might think, okay, there's 3 ropes. It's not illegal to do a move off the middle rope. Maybe he did something close to a degree to like a lion's salt, just without like the running start, you leap off the middle rope. Maybe just to be even more unique, because I mean, Poffo had good, hops at the time. Maybe Poffo did it from the bottom rope. That might have been cool. See how that turned out. He did neither of those things. He jumped off the top rope. So you might be thinking, okay, so Poffo jumped off the top rope. But we've seen this a bunch of times. The referee gets knocked down or distracted, and the guy goes off the top rope and, moves on with our lives. But Trae, that's not what happened, is it?
Nothing in modern wrestling pisses me off as much as 1983 Mid-South when Bill Watts has to do mental gymnastics on commentary to rationalize why certain people are allowed to do finishing moves off the top rope when it's an automatic DQ for everyone else. Oh, it's not illegal because he's not jumping on his opponent. He's doing a backflip. Fuck Bill Watts. Fuck Grizzly Smith. Fuck Mid-South Sports. Allowing this bullshit to stand is the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done.
That was the excuse. It's not a disqualification because his moonsault is not jumping on his opponent. He's doing a backflip. He's not just doing a backflip for the sake of doing a backflip.
Where does he land?
Yeah. Even if it was unintentional, even if he was just interested in showing off his gymnastic skills, at the end of the day, he landed with a top rope move onto Doug Vines. Doug Vines is the winner of this match by disqualification.
What do you think would happen if somebody slipped through the space-time continuum and did a shooting star press?
I can only imagine what Watts would have done to try to, say that was okay. By the way, the only 2 people in this fucking show who have been allowed to jump off the top rope onto people are Leaping Lanny Poffo and Mil Mascaras.
My wife just texted me, "Are you okay?"
What are you going to say to her in response? Maybe.
I don't know. Okay, so here are the auto reply options on my phone. I have yes, I'm fine, no, or I'm here.
I think I'm here might be the best of the options. Oh, Lordy.
It's gonna go with yes.
So yes, Lanny Poffo should have been disqualified, which makes this the 4th time somebody should have been disqualified on this show. Well, I gotta say, they really need to crack the whip and enforce these fucking rules here on the show. Or treat it like WCW did.
I hate this rule. This rule is fucking stupid. But if you're gonna do it, fucking do it consistently.
Mm-hmm. This is the WCW over the top rope DQ rule. It was a DQ when they wanted it to be a DQ, and other than that, when you saw it, 10 other times on a show, they just ignored that it happened because it wasn't a DQ and thus it never happened.
Yeah. It's just ruined my mood for the rest of the day.
And we still have many, many minutes of show to go. And I unfortunately, I'm gonna put you in a bad mood in a little bit too, because I got something else to bring up as a talking point or something to discuss. So tag team champions Jim Duggan and North American champion Magnum TA are out next to take on Butch Reed and Jim Neidhart. I believe that the only reason they put Reed and Neidhart as a team was so they could be forced to pronounce their name correctly. Not that they ever called him Butch Reed, but I mean, if you have Butch Reed and Jim Neidhart and their names are not spelled similarly, you're going to question, wait, why are we calling him that?
Jim the Hammer Neidhart.
Yes. So Reed starts with TA, and shockingly, Major Orville Richards did not make Junkyard Dog the referee for this match too. I note that calling this match weird is mean, but in some ways this match was really weird because normally we're used to Mid-South tag team matches that don't really follow the traditional tag team formula. It's usually a 45-minute sprint where the first 75% of the match is the baby faces shining, and then at the very end, you get a little bit of the heels in control, and then whatever the finish is. This was a straight up traditional tag team match, where they got the heat on Magnum TA, and it went on for a good chunk of the match here. Duggan, they kept teasing the tag to Duggan. It's that old school tag team thing. They keep making the tag, but the referee was distracted for some reason. And it happened 2 or 3 times. And finally, Duggan just said, fuck it, and jumped in the ring. The 4-way breaks out. So while the referee's trying to maintain control and get Duggan the fuck out of the ring, whatchamacallit, I didn't even say who did this, but somebody threw Magnum TA over the top rope behind the referee's back.
I don't know
Neidhart,
why I wrote this down, but it was Neidhart that threw Magnum over the top rope.
Okay. So Neidhart throws him over the top rope. TA does get back in, and Neidhart goes for the Samoan drop on TA, but Duggan spears Neidhart. Reed then gives the slingshot, aka the diving shoulder tackle to TA, and that's enough for the pin. So Reed and Neidhart are the tag team champions, and so this means that Reed and Magnum TA flip-flop belts on this week's show, which I think in the 2 years we've been watching this, maybe the first time multiple titles have changed hands on the same show.
I don't doubt that.
Because it's like, yeah, I mean, we've had multiple title matches on the same show, but I believe this is the only time because, it's old school wrestling. When you do a title change, you want that to be the sole thing that's the big news. So if you have 2 title changes, it waters it down a little bit. And I mean, in this way, I wouldn't even.
I remember always thinking that you remember in like 2001, it was an episode of SmackDown that Kane lost the hardcore title due to interference from Steve Austin and Triple H. And then at the end of the show, Kane and Undertaker won the tag team titles from Edge and Christian to set up the all the titles match at Backlash. And I always assumed, well, surely that is the first time that someone lost one title and won another title on the same show. But no, 18 years before that, Butch Reed here on Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah, so Kane is not the first to do anything, Fuck Kane.
Good, fuck Kane.
Not really, but
I'm
sure
fuck Kane.
No, I've got no interest in having sexual relations with Kane. And knowing Kane's religious, but political aspirations, I think Kane would agree with me on this case. We're both all set. So yeah, like I said, new tag team champions, new North American champions. So we'll see how this all plays out next week. But then, because like I said, they ate up a large chunk at the beginning of this show with that whole thing with Butch Reed. We're already at the end of the fucking show, and so it's time for our previously announced King Kong Bundy versus Crusher Darsow match. But there's only 3 minutes left. Darso slams Bundy, but it's the way that Hogan did it at WrestleMania 2, where Bundy's stumbling out of the corner and Darso kind of scoop slams him from there. Um, and we find out that next week the little people are going to be here, the minis. It's going to be Lone Eagle versus Cowboy Lane, along with Junkyard Dog versus Max. And the last time we had a little people here, it took them about a month to actually show the match. So I'm curious if next week's match is actually going to happen next week.
Are we not allowed to say midgets?
I I mean, it's that thing that we have that I throw up every time that they're on the show. You know, wrestling terminology and parlance and things that were acceptable to say and do in 1983 aren't necessarily what's okay to say in 2024. However, for the sake of reporting what happened in 1983, the accepted terminology for that match is a midget match. And
If
as
if you're a little person and you are upset at my words, at me at Arya and Trae on Twitter and let me know you've had it down to here with that crap.
and I mean, obviously, one little person does not speak for everybody, or even two little people don't speak for everybody. But I've heard that little people in wrestling to this day preferred it when it was called midget wrestling because it was more popular. Because now it's called mini wrestling, and I don't think it necessarily draws the same because when you say mini wrestling, unless you're in Mexico, you don't automatically, in some cases, know what that is. You know, or I've also seen micro wrestling. That's the other one that's the
Most of the little
terminology is
people
used.
whose opinions I care about at all, I think, prefer the term midget, so I'm gonna go with that.
Hornswoggle just signed a WWE Legends deal. Maybe we should ask him.
Hey, good for him.
Yeah. All right. So, any final thoughts on this week's episode of Mid South?
I just fuck, fuck, god damn it, fuck.
So, I'm gonna bring up a topic here, and maybe I should have
Okay.
waited till next week because you're in a little bit of a mood. So I don't, but hey, this might actually be the best time to ask, because hey, it could make for a really interesting bit of radio here.
All right.
Young Bucks versus Private Party from WrestleDream. We had this discussion on
Oh,
Facebook.
good.
Yeah, we had this discussion on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, you know what? Why have a spirited discussion? Because you and I don't really argue much on this show. Why have this spirited discussion in private when we could have it in private where 20 people might listen to it? So,
All right, because we need some conflict on the show.
I mean, it's not so much we need conflict, but I thought it was good wrestling discussion. And it's important, in my opinion, to have good wrestling discussion on our show where we, in theory, have good wrestling discussion.
In
Um,
theory.
yes. So, Young Bucks beat Private Party at WrestleDream. And I do know that, like, I'll be honest, I went into that match thinking Private Party was going to win. And I thought it would be a mistake to do it at this point. Not that it's a mistake for a Private Party to win the belts, but as I've mentioned, Private Party is one of those groups that, in AEW, there's like 20 people who are on the show for about 1 month a year and they get a 1 month push. They may get a pay-per-view match, maybe they don't. In this case, Private Party did. And at the end of the day, they go away and we don't see them again for another year. In fact, with Halloween coming up, I'm expecting Abaddon to show up on Dynamite any week now. So Private Party, who, I said this last year, one of the things about Private Party is that the smartest thing they ever did was have them beat the Young Bucks on that episode of Dynamite, because you can now bring them back every so often, do a rematch, and there's that part of you that goes, okay, the Young Bucks are much bigger stars. They're going to win, but there was that one other time Private Party won. Because they've wrestled about half a dozen times on Dynamite. This is their first ever time they wrestled each other on pay-per-view, and they built it around the same segment. I think Private Party should one day beat the Young Bucks and win the tag team titles. I did not think WrestleDream was the right time because of what I said, that they get used once a year for about 1 month. I think you need to give them a 2 or 3 month program with somebody else, some other team, and make it not a focal point, but an important part of television where Private Party is now wrestling this other team for 2 or 3 months, and at the end of the day, they win and win decisively. And when that's done, you move on to the Young Bucks, where now they beat the Young Bucks for the tag team titles, and it doesn't just feel random that you're pulling you're pulling Private Party out of obscurity for 1 month to get a tag team title match. And I understand, and I'm sure you'll give us your opinion in a second, but you disagreed with delaying it. So, Trey, the floor is yours to explain your thought process behind that.
Look, is it the end of the world? No. Did it put me in a bad mood for like the Jericho match? Yes. I thought that was the time to do it. And it's not like, would it be cool if they had been booked a little stronger and built a little more? Yeah, that'd be great. But they decided to do the match now, and since they were doing the match now, I felt like that was the time to do it. I think the biggest weakness in Tony Khan's booking has been that he doesn't know when to pull the trigger on somebody ascending to the next level. And just mostly because of that, I really wanted, like, I wanted him to show that he does know how to strike when the iron is hot. And it's like, this is a small thing, but like the Outrunners. The Outrunners were a jobber team for like, I don't know, a couple of years. And then just, they organically got over. And for the first time, it feels like an act that organically started to get over, that he went, okay, I'm going to push these guys now. So now, like, they've won on TV a couple of times recently. They won on the pre-show of the pay-per-view, and that's good. And that made me optimistic that maybe we know something about striking when the iron is hot. And I understand timing. I made our argument over the course of the show that I think Willow Nightingale should be the one to take the Women's World Championship from Mariah May. But last night was not the night to do it, because you need more heat on Mariah first. This match, look, the Young Bucks, there's no like the Young Bucks getting more heat. They are the Young Bucks. They are one of the most over enduring acts in this company. They are what they are going to be. They can lose these titles and it's fine. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt the prestige of the championship. They could win the belts back in 6 months and go on another run. Or even, whatever, sooner. They could do a rematch at the fucking next pay-per-view and fuck Private Party, and that'd be fine. But this match on this night, I thought that it was time to pull the trigger, because something that I have been so frustrated with, and that is that Private Party have been the future of this tag division for 5 years. If you are the future for 5 years, when the fuck do you become the now? And you can see it changing with other guys, like with the big angle to close the show. You can tell, like, it's time for Darby Allin to step up to the next level. It's time for Orange Cassidy to step up to the next level. It may even be time finally for Daniel Garcia to step up to the next level. It was time for Private Party to step up to the next level. Now, I am a huge Japanese wrestling nerd. Everybody knows that.
Really?
One of the biggest problems with Tony as a booker is that I think his brain is too Japan pilled, and he thinks that you can do the Japanese thing where you just beat somebody and beat somebody into perpetuity and they slowly get more over in losing. And that doesn't exactly work with a Western audience. With an American wrestling audience, the guy's got to win or the people lose faith in him. And that's the problem. And that's why I thought it was a booking mistake for Private Party to not win that match.
Losing all the time, or at least a lot, worked. The only time that it comes to me, and I'm sure there's other times, but the only one I could think of was Jeff Hardy when he kept losing to Umaga in like the summer of 2007. But the matches were so fucking good that even though Jeff Hardy kept losing, he got far more over in that spot than Umaga did. And Umaga beat him 99 times out of 100.
Yes. But
That's the
Jeff
exception
Hardy
to the
was
rule.
always been someone who was more over than his push.
That was
And it
also
just
like,
made,
mhm,
in that case, the frustration of him losing just made the people want it more and more. Because
yeah,
he was already over to a very significant level.
no doubt. I just it like in and I get what you're saying, but like my thought was just like it wasn't their time because they hadn't been built up properly. And you mentioned that they've been the future of the AEW tag team vision since day one. Unfortunately there was, that injury for one of them that they were out for like over a year, I think, because that's when the
Mark
other one
Quinn,
was
yeah.
with, yeah, that's when Isaiah Cassidy was with Matt Hardy forever.
Yeah.
Um, and like I still remember, I think it was Mark Quinn that like when AEW started, Mark Quinn was the future of wrestling because like everyone, no matter if you were an AEW lover or an AEW hater, everyone saw dollar signs in Mark Quinn, 2, 3 years down the road that this guy is gonna fucking be something. And unfortunately, it has not played out for a myriad of reasons, and I think Private Party is like one of those acts that they have suffered with the dramatic increase in the roster size of AEW. Like I know AEW views Ring of Honor as their developmental system, but I think they need an actual dedicated developmental territory, one that does more than just tape
They could
90
run
minutes of
ROH as the
TV.
developmental territory. And
I mean,
yeah.
that would be fine if they like, and I understand it costs money, but guess what? They're now making money. But so it's like they need an actual real touring developmental territory. You want to have them tape 90 minutes of TV before Dynamite? Fine, do that, whatever. But they need these guys to get reps. And they need these guys to go out there and do a true developmental territory where you go out there and you run 3, 4 small shows, a week where you're just getting your young guys some time. And I know I've just taken this discussion an entirely different thing than the original discussion, but I think like Mark Quinn is suffering because he never has really gotten the chance to improve. Because you're not going to improve having 1 month of TV every year and, you know, that's it. And I'm sure, and I
You know
haven't
it'd be
looked at
fucking
Cage.
sweet?
What's that?
Like I know AEW they have relationships with New Japan and Stardom, and they have a little bit with like TJPW and GLEAT and a little bit with Noah. I think it'd be fucking sweet to send Private Party to Dragon Gate for a couple of months.
I mean, that could be interesting. I was about to say they got a thing with Impact, but that ended a while ago. Blame Sammy Guevara for that one. Um,
Oh yeah.
either blame Sammy Guevara or Scott D'Amore. Either way. Um, But by the way, Mark Quinn is 30 years old. I guess I kind of could have figured that one out, but still. Um, so in 2024 so far, Mark Quinn has had 28 matches. And let me just double check here. Every single match has been on AEW. So they're not even doing indie shows. Because I figured, okay, I'm sure if I look up, Private Party on Cage Match, I'll find them working a dozen indie shows a month or whatever. Like, no, this is all they're doing. So maybe part of it is just, you know, them not taking the initiative, but, you know, they need something here, to improve. Because I mean, even looking at the matches they're having, like, they Collision, they're doing a trios jobber match. They took on the Iron Savages a few weeks ago. They're doing a lot of 6 and 8 and apparently 16-man tags that I've long since forgotten. It's like, no, like, dudes, like, and there are 50 guys in AEW you could say this about. Put them in a dedicated developmental system where they're going out there and wrestling, or force their hand and make them do some indies, because they ain't getting any better doing random giant tag team matches on pay-per-view pre-shows. Because they've done a 12-man
You
tag
know,
on pre-show, a 16-man tag on a pre-show. It's Tony loves booking the giant tag match on a pre-show of a pay-per-view. We'll say that.
yeah. So we have a New Japan show in about a little over 6 hours, where am just all but certain that they are going to announce the teams for the Super Junior Tag League. Let's get
Hey,
Private Party in that. That'd be pretty sweet.
I agree, and it's not like they don't take outside teams. Like we had ABC in it a couple of years ago, Ace Austin and Chris Bay. I'm
Well,
sure there's many others that we could point to.
Jack Jack Perry did so good, and he came back from New Japan with like a new lease on life. Anna Jay just came back from a Stardom tour, whole new lease on life. Look, I have always said for years that like every wrestler should spend 6 months to a year in Japan, but you have all these guys who need to put it together a little more to get to the next level. You have a relationship with these Japanese promotions. Send them to Japan for a tour or two. It will work,
Hey,
I promise. I've watched it work so many times.
you know who else it worked for? The fucking Young Buck. You know, I was
Yeah.
reading some old observers like 2012, 2013, and it was the first time the Young Bucks got booked for the Junior Tag League. And Dave is not ripping it apart, but Dave is definitely like, this is a waste. They're not good enough to be in Junior Tag League. And by the end of it, he wasn't, marking out for them anymore, but he was like, well, they've definitely improved, etc. It's like, hey, if you can't take a step from the Young Bucks about anything else, take one here. Do Junior Tag League.
Yeah.
Sure, you know, you
And
may
that's the
finish
thing
0 and
about
9, but something,
yeah.
you'll improve because it's impossible not to.
Is the thing about New Japan and those other like big Japanese promotions. Either you're gonna swim or you're gonna drown. And if you're good, you're gonna swim. Like even God, look at the Noah's N1 tournament this year. They had like yeah, Josh Briggs was kind of the shits, but like Tavion Heights from NXT was fucking awesome. Like the guys who can do it, you have to put them in a position to swim or drown. You can't and Private Party, as I have said in not so many words, have just been treading water for a very long time.
So with that, let's dive into world class. I think we gave our crews enough time to travel from Shreveport to Dallas. So
Yeah.
well, let's go to Bill Mercer with the intro of this week's show.
Welcome to World Class Championship Wrestling from the Sportatorium, the famed Sportatorium in downtown Dallas, Texas. We've got a tremendous main event along with a great card. It's gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and David Von Erich. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and David Von Erich in their battle on World Class Championship Wrestling, and Kamala is here. But first, an encore World Class Championship match, a classic. A lot of letters to see Kerry Von Erich meet Buddy Roberts again. It's a wild one, next on World Class Championship Wrestling.
Okay. When he announced that the main event was Jimmy Garvin versus not Terry Gordy, versus David Von Erich, I literally paused the show to make sure I was watching the right day. So I'm like,
you were.
I was. And then we're going to have Kamala here. And Kamala hasn't been here in a few months. So I'm like, okay, I'm really watching the wrong show here. But no, I'm watching the right show. Then, for whatever reason, and we've learned that reason is just they don't tape enough stuff sometimes, we're getting a replay of a random Kerry Von Erich versus Buddy Roberts match. I did not even stop long enough to see when this was or what the finish was. I fast-forwarded 9 minutes.
It was the match that aired on the August 27th show. I looked that up while I was fast-forwarding through the match.
Do you remember what happened? Was there anything notable? Like, fast-forwarding, I saw that Buddy Roberts had his wig on. That's about it.
Kerry won with a reverse cradle, and then Michael Hayes attacked Kerry.
All right. I would ask why they aired it, other than just they didn't tape enough shit. But that's my best guess. They didn't tape enough shit. So, when we started watching World Class back in March, or at least when I started watching World Class back in March, pretty much every week we went on location for a fun little skit, and I was like, man, this is what's making World Class great. We're going outside of the bounds of the Sportatorium, and we're getting some funny, wacky stuff that really is getting over these personalities. And they stopped doing that for months. We haven't really had this. I think the last real one we had was Jimmy Garvin working as David Von Erich's valet for a day. But hey, we're back. We're gonna go to Jimmy Garvin's pool. And actually this skit is on the WWE World Class DVD, because like as soon as it started, I'm like, I've seen this before. And that's where it is. But let's go to Jimmy Garvin. Look, Jimmy Garvin at poolside with Sunshine, Sunshine's new valet, and Bill Mercer.
We found the busy, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin luxuriating at poolside and almost got an invitation to meet the new valet to Sunshine. Here with the American Heavyweight Champion, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, his valet Sunshine, and Sunshine's new valet. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, how did it occur to you to hire a valet for Sunshine?
Well, really, it's very simple, Bill Mercer. You know, I've been telling the people for months how great I am, that I am the American heavyweight champion and the greatest athlete in the world. And I know they like to hear those things about me, but for once, I thought, well, instead of all the attention going to gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, why not give Sunshine a break? And that's really what I did, in essence, with hiring the assistant for Sunshine, was to give her a break, because she deserves it, like she deserves it. Well, when we were in Tokyo, I got her this ring. I didn't tell you when we were there because I wanted to surprise you, This was, the assistant is one surprise. The ring was another surprise, and the diamond earrings, showing the diamond earrings.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I thought, well, everybody's always fussing over gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, and nobody's really paying attention to Sunshine, and she gets so abused, Bill Mercer. The Von Erichs have put this poor child through so much that no woman in the world could do what Sunshine has done for gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. No woman in the world could keep up with me in my busy schedule. No woman in the world could put up with just the whole total scene. So I thought, well, okay, what are we going to do? I said to myself, and I said, well, okay, we'll get an assistant. And that's what I did. Because, I am the American heavyweight champion. That's what this is. I am the greatest athlete in the world today. I am...
Why don't you take care of this?
That's all right, they got it.
Jimmy and I were used to this, okay?
They're okay. Okay, get that together. Like I was saying before, it's just to give Sunshine a little bit of relief and to give her a break.
Let me ask you, Sunshine, what do you plan for her to do for you?
Wait a minute. You asked me the questions, okay? You're talking to me.
Now, Jim, I'm
talking around.
I know, but Jim, I've never talked to her, never asked her a question. Let me have one question, okay?
One question.
All right, Sunshine, what is she going to do for you?
Oh, she's going to watch the Lincoln. She's going to make reservations. We're going to San Francisco. And she's going to take my silk blouses to the dry cleaners, go to the health food store for us.
It sounds like a lot. You're not a slave driver. It sounds like you're a slave driver, honey. But, she's kind of like me. We're busy people. And I think that it's important that Sunshine gets a break in the action and gets a little bit of relief.
All right. Now, is this girl going to have the same close personal relationship with you as Sunshine has, Jimmy?
Mercer, it never fails, does it? It never fails that we get into an interview and you got to ask me a silly question.
It's not a silly question. Everybody knows sees your close relationship.
Sunshine, let me get it. Sunshine is my personal valet. The assistant is her assistant. It's her business. I don't have nothing to do with it. My business is defending the American heavyweight title. My business is beating up Von Erich's. What?
Jimmy, why don't we cool down, huh?
All right.
We'll take a swim. You want to take a swim?
I want to take a swim. Okay, we'll go for a swim.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, why don't you go get Jimmy's swimsuit and my swimsuit? Jimmy and I are going to go for a swim before you start your chores, okay?
Yeah, she's on the ball. This girl's on the ball. She has a good coach. Sunshine's on the ball, and we're going to go swimming, right?
They're going to go swimming. How nice. So, yeah, like I said, this is a segment I've seen before because it's on the WWE World Class TV they put out, in like 06, 07 or so. And it's just a fun little segment. It's Jimmy Garvin at poolside. They have their new assistant. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is Prescious. But I mean, she's got blonde hair, so it doesn't really look like her because you think of Prescious having being a brunette like she was in Crockett. But yeah.
I did strenuous research on this to ascertain this information. And to the best that I was able to obtain, this is in fact Prescious.
Like I said, she's my preferred Jimmy Garvin valet, even though Garvin and Sunshine are a tremendous duo. I'll be honest, when we go to this clip at first, I thought she was giving.
Were they already an item, and that's how she got the gig, or what? Do you have any idea?
I think they've been married since the 70s.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
I'll be honest, when we went to the skit, because Sunshine's boots were flesh tone, I thought she was giving her a foot massage at first. But no, she's giving her a manicure. But so Garvin.
I just want to say I'm just really happy for our guy Bill Mercer. We know that nothing makes him happier than being invited to a pool.
Yes. Too bad the Freebirds never let him in their pool. But Garvin apparently went to Japan and bought Sunshine the Crown Jewel Championship belt. I mean, some giant gaudy ring. And also bought her diamond earrings. And then Mercer got to ask Sunshine a question. And Sunshine's listing all the things that, her new valet has to do for her. And to be honest, they don't really sound like that bad things to do. I mean, if that's your job is to be her assistant, that's 2 hours of work, even in 1983. But, Garvin has to point out that they're not slave drivers. They're just doing things to make life easier on Sunshine, which is nice. And then the assistant went and got their swimsuits, and that's how the segment comes to an end.
Indeed.
All right. So after Art Cruz did the JOB in the opener of Mid-South,
cool.
After Art Cruz does the JOB in the opener Mid-South, he hopped in his car and drove 190 miles to do the opener of World Class, where he takes on Kamala, who has Friday and General Skandor Akbar in his corner. The match begins. Kamala jumps Art Cruz, but drunk Mark Lawrence insists that even though the match is already happening, he has to do the introductions, god damn it. And so while the match is happening, Mark Lawrence not just does the introductions of the match, he does the show opening introductions, where he welcomes us to World Class Championship Wrestling at the famed Sportatorium and talks about the referees tonight and all that shit while the match is happening. I was hoping beyond hope that the match would end while Lawrence was still introducing the match.
Mark Lawrence, I'm concerned about his drinking habits. This was ridiculous.
Mercer might be drinking the same stuff here because we've noted in the past that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I
We
was about to agree with you, and then I don't know what you're about to say, but I was going to note that after the match, Mercer said that Art Cruz was 6'7" and 250 pounds.
Yes.
And I do not believe that was correct.
No. And the reason why they have to say that is because they've said that Kamala's 6'9", 6'10" for so long, and the fact that he's only 2 inches taller than Art Cruz, they have to say that. But it gets
So
funnier
goofy.
next week.
Oh,
I've
okay.
already watched next week's show. I want you to remember that this week, Art Cruz is 6'7" and 250 pounds.
Okay, I will put a pin in that.
Oh my God. It's just fantastic. Kamala wins in case you thought Art Cruz might do a job in the opener on one show and win this match. Did not happen. But then, who the fuck did Chris Adams piss off? So we've been talking for the last 3 months about how Chris Adams keeps wrestling John Mantell and cannot beat the Booker's brother. And keep in mind, I don't think John Mantell ever beat him, but after Adams beat half the top heels in the promotion, he kept going to time limit draws with John fucking Mantell. And this week, Chris Adams teams with John fucking Mantell to take on Buddy Roberts and Michael Hayes. I noted, by the way, that Buddy Roberts had his wig back on after he took it off last week. But he did take it off while Mercer talked about how the Super Ds are on their way in, who I'm assuming are the Super Destroyers, but he just keeps calling them the Super Ds.
I'm assuming that these are not the same Super Ds that are on Eastern Championship Wrestling in 1993.
I'm assuming that George Weingroff is not one of the Super Ds.
I actually think I know who these Super Ds are.
Like, if it's the same Super Destroyers, like one of them Scott Irwin.
I think it's Bill and Scott Irwin, isn't it?
Maybe. I mean, I just know Super Destroyer is Scott Irwin. I just, I haven't seen them as a Super Destroyer tag team. But I guess we'll see here when we eventually get them. So Chris Adams and John Mantell did a version of the Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin move where you do the leapfrog over your partner and splash down on your foe. Let it be known this is the only time you will ever hear me compare John Mantell to Charlie Haas. We find out that the girl wrestlers are coming soon, and we're informed that Larry King is the referee here. Now, Mark Lawrence did say the names of the referees at the start of the show, and one of their names was Larry, but I didn't write down the last name, and I didn't go back and check. But I'm pretty sure he didn't say Larry King. But Mercer insists that it's Larry King, which I guess, Larry King had to do something before he got a CNN show in 1985. So maybe being a referee in Dallas was what he did. I don't know.
You think that this Larry has a brother named Daryl and another brother named Daryl? Is that too esoteric a reference? That's
Yep.
I guess that's just for me.
Hey, every so often we got to make a joke just for ourselves.
One person out of the 20 watched Nick at Night growing up like I did and just chuckled at that joke.
Junkyard Dog is going to be here soon.
Really?
That's what Bill Mercer said. I
So
was unaware. Mhm.
when Mercer said that the girl wrestlers are coming soon, I really hope that just means they're going to play the Lola Gonzalez Vicky Carranza match again.
That would be tremendous. 'Cause I just thought, hey, they're going to bring in Lola Gonzalez and Vicky Carranza again. No, we're just going to keep. What would even be better if we kept re-airing that match and pretended that it was a different match. Maybe I'm the only person who thinks it would
I
be
just
better
hope they're
that
bringing
way.
Fishman again.
But by the way, the dog apparently, well, he has a little bit of a run. He's going to split his time between here and Mid-South beginning in January. But he does have a couple matches here over the next couple weeks. He wrestles here at the Sportatorium and then at Thanksgiving Star Wars, where him and Iceman King Parsons do in fact take on the Super Ds. And the Super Ds are, in fact, two people who I will tell you who they are when the screen loads. It is Bill and Scott Irwin. So
It
thank you,
is. I'm
Trey.
back. Yeah. I couldn't hear anything for like 30 seconds.
Okay, well, it's fine because I was talking really slow while the screen loaded.
That's good. Anyway, this was a good match. I have no criticisms.
Well, apparently John Mantell being involved just made me ignore it because for some reason, I don't know, maybe I was looking up just the Sportatorium in general, but I found out that the Sportatorium was also host to something called the Big D Jamboree, which was not a Triple X throwdown, but a children's show. And Grizzly Smith got really excited when he saw children going to the Big D Jamboree.
Jesus.
A four-way breaks out. Adams blocks a Buddy Roberts Bulldog and pins him after a super kick because Mantell wouldn't release Hayes to break it up. Selfish prick.
My only takeaway really is that apparently the story is that the Freebirds hair cream is so strong that it has prevented Buddy's hair from growing back for these many months.
And his hands also are hairless now. I gotta say, I never
I just
noticed.
So does that mean that he's not a masturbator?
Well, I believe he is married, so he doesn't need to.
That never mind.
All right, so American champion Jimmy Garvin dressed in all white with Sunshine and her assistant valet versus David Von Erich in our main event. First of all, though, Chris Adams is in the ring and he has something to say.
David, please. I just have something to say to Garvin. Garvin, are you listening? I'm here to make a formal challenge to you. Okay? Yes. Listen. Some time ago, in front of thousands and thousands of TV viewers, Garvin called me a coward. Well, I'll tell you what, Garvin, I'm calling you a bluff because I'm calling you a coward to your face. And if you're not a coward, why don't you wrestle me? And put up your belt. The guy's a joke. Would everybody like to see him put up his belt? He's a joke. Let's see what a man you are, Garvin. That's my challenge to you.
You may remember.
I guess he's not really a man because not only does Jimmy Garvin ignore the challenge, he just, Chris Adams just leaves.
Yeah, I just why did they do this now? It was a weird choice.
It does continue next week. I'll say that, but it's and if I was Chris Adams, though, I would be a little leery about doing anything involving a championship around David Von Erich. He is not a trusted individual to be around championship matches, especially those that don't
No.
involve him.
Mhm.
Mercer, by the way, and I'm sure this was just a slip of the tongue, but he talks about Sunshine's valet, which made me think / hope that her name is Sunshine's valet. And so, Mercer was saying Sunshine's valet, her name being Sunshine's valet.
I wrote Sunshine's assistant, but yeah.
Trey, I hope you're sitting down for this, because if not, I
Yeah, I
can
am.
knock you over with a feather. David Von Erich versus Jimmy Garvin on World Class this week in 1983 was not as good as Will Ospreay versus Ricochet versus Konosuke Takeshita.
Very few things are.
They do announce it next week, and I mean, we kind of spoiled it for you last week by talking about this, but Harley Race will be here next week to defend the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship on TV against Iceman King Parsons, of all people. And not saying Iceman Parsons isn't a worthy challenger. He's won a lot on TV. He lost to Buddy Roberts, but he's still considered the winner of that match. But, Parsons is getting a world title shot instead of someone whose last name is Von Erich. I wrote that I guess this
that's
means
weird.
Yeah, I wrote that I guess this means Harley can get a win on TV. So
You'd think.
Akbar, Friday, and Kamala come to ringside for a closer view. Kamala then really wanted a closer view as he just gets in the ring and begins chopping David for the disqualification. It was such a nonchalant thing, too. He's just like, I'm walking into the ring. I'm now just going to get in the ring and walk over and start chopping David Von Erich. I'm like, okay, then. David then comes back and puts Kamala in the Iron Claw. And I'll be honest, as much as I think they're really pushing David Von Erich at this point kind of down your throats, I liked this because Kamala is this beast who never backs down. Him and Brody went at it, and he didn't back down from Brody. David Von Erich gets on the Iron Claw. He wears down Kamala. Kamala gets out of it and leaves the ring. Akbar orders him in to go and attack David again. Kamala gets up on the apron and decides that he doesn't want any more of this, and he gets down and leaves. I liked it.
As I have noted several times on this here show, Kamala was really fucking great at being Kamala.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a big David Von Erich fan, we have 3.5 months left of his life. So don't get used
Spoiler.
to it. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler that the man who died before I was born is going to die soon.
Mercer mentions he wants us to find a promoter that will book David Von Erich versus Kamala. Where do you think he's going to find a promoter that's going to book such a match?
Upstairs in the Sportatorium.
Possibly. So there wasn't an interview at the end. Mercer just recapped the main event, and that's how the show came to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we mocked the show a bit, but for the most part, I enjoyed this show. I thought it was a fun little episode of World Class this week.
I usually find things to like about the shows. I just feel like if we can't find something about the shows to mock, what's the point of doing a fucking podcast about it?
Indeed. And we had some stuff to mock this week, no doubt. Fucking Lanny Poffo and the inconsistency of the rules over in Mid-South. Art Cruz throwing 7 inches.
It's not even Lanny's fault. God bless Lanny Poffo.
No, I like, if I had to guess, Lanny Poffo just did it. They didn't retape the match or anything. And I could be wrong. We'll find out in the future. but I bet Lanny Poffo doesn't do the moonsault ever again.
You think?
I think, because they don't retape shit, because this is real, God damn it, and so we're not going to retape it in front of this same audience. So, Poffo's going to get a talking to, and be like, hey, this is the rules of Mid-South. You can't make me look stupid on TV. Don't do moves off the top rope anymore. And Poffo probably like, I'm sorry, Bill.
I have a guess that Lanny is just coming in and winning a match or two to establish some degree of credibility before he proceeds to lose a lot.
I'll be honest. I mean, I'm sure he loses a lot, but there is actually a fun little angle coming up that I really enjoy. But
cool.
that's still to come. Yeah. And so that's going to do it for this fine, fun episode where we managed to, by and large, stay on topic for the entire episode.
Except for that whole intermission where we talked about AEW for 10 or 15 minutes.
To be fair, I consider that on topic because I wrote it down as something to discuss as part of a topic.
Okay.
Well, that's going to do it for this week. Do you want to plug the Oh My God cast?
Yeah, ohmygodcast.com. We had a new episode last week. We're currently on an every other week doing 2 episode schedule. We are roughly even with where Arya and I are on the Smoky Mountain reviews, so there's some interesting, discussion about the times and whatnot. And yeah, ohmygodcast.com or wherever fine podcasts are sold. And yeah, I'm about to go take a nap because there's a New Japan show in about 5 hours. And my plan is to get up and watch a New Japan show, and then that should finish right about when it's time for me to take my car into the shop at 8 in the morning.
I figured it's going to end just about the time that I wake up to go to work, so I'll ask you how the show went.
Yeah. I'm rooting for my guy Zack Sabre Jr. to bring the title home.
Oh, that's the show tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Go ZSJ. But that's going to do it for this week's show. I got to let Trey go take a nap. I want to thank everyone for listening. Hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.